In this video, we're going to be answering some of the most frequently asked questions that the customer experience team receives here at Festool, today specifically, all related to track saws. Now, first question that comes through a lot. Why is there so much slop in my track saw? So if you see, I can take this and I can move it side to side on this track. Well, when you first get your track saw, if you find that there's a lot of slop in it, one of the first things that you need to do is remove that slop. And that slop is removed through the use of these cams on the back side of the saw. What you're trying to achieve is you want to make sure that that saw is sliding freely on your track, but not shifting side to side. So if I start adjusting these cams and I was to tighten them down all the way, you'll notice I can no longer move my saw. So from here, we're going to back it off until we start to get a little bit of movement, but not the racking side to side, and you can just fine tune it until you have your saw dialed in. What you don't want is to tighten them down too much to where it makes it difficult to push, but not so loose that you're getting the movement from side to side. Once you have that set, you should be good to go. The next thing I want to address is something that comes through, and it's a two-part question. What is each track saw good for, and which one should you buy? So I'm going to kind of briefly discuss what I have broken down into a couple of different categories to give you an idea of what they're good for. But in terms of which one to buy, if you want to get a really in-depth discussion on each one of these and a comparison between them, definitely check out my previous Basics with Bent, where I break down each one of the track saws. So what I've done is I've put these in, I'm classifying it as three kind of separate groups. We'll start over here on my right. And these are the HK saws. So we have the HK and we have the HKC, the C being the cordless. These are going to be better suited for somebody that's doing carpentry work, right? You're working on a job site and you're doing framing, you're doing staircases, you're doing things that you need to make really quick repetitive cuts, but is more along the framing and carpentry side of things. These are going to be a great option for you when paired with the FSK rails. So now I want to go over to the left. Now this is a much more specialty case saw. This is the TSV60. It is a newer saw from Festool, but what's special about this is while you still get all the same great benefits and features of any of the other track saws, this has the addition of a scoring blade. So I think this is better suited for people that are maybe processing a lot of really high-end sheet good material, doing a lot of melamine work, and they need the added benefit of the scoring blade. So I don't think that this is going to be necessarily a use case for everybody. And not to mention, you may never actually need the scoring blade for the materials that you're cutting. So this I've kind of put in a separate category. And then I have what's in the middle. And I think that this is probably where the majority of woodworkers or people that are looking to buy a track saw are going to be in. Right? We have our TS55F, we have our TSC55, this being the cordless, the newer TS60, which is essentially the same saw as the TSV60, just minus the scoring blade, and we have the TS75. So these four, I think, are going to be better suited for the typical woodworker or person that is working and operating out of a home shop. You're working on job sites. It really just boils down to what capacity you need. And again, I go into this in much more detail in the video where I do a side-by-side comparison of these. But real briefly, if you see a number, the TS55, right, that means I have 55 millimeters of cut depth. So I have 55, 55, 60, 75. So if you find yourself cutting thicker materials on a regular basis, then TS75 might be a good option. If you find yourself processing mainly sheet goods, the 55s might be a better option. If you want something that's kind of the best of both worlds, that's where the TS60 comes into play, because you do get that little bit extra cut depth and a newly designed motor in the TS60. The next questions that come through a lot are usually dealing with blades. Now, something that I've had conversations with a lot of people about is the thought that their track saw is underpowered. It's not cutting the way they want, they're getting burning, etc. So there's usually a couple of things that are going to cause that. One, they either have a dirty or dull blade and they just have not taken the time to clean it or get it sharpened, or they're not using the proper blade for the application. Now, most people's inclination is to try and cut everything with the blade that comes standard in their track saw. Now, depending on which track saw you get, some of them come with different blades. For example, the TS75 has a more aggressive blade that comes standard than something like the TSC 55 KEB, which is going to have the fine-tooth blade. I think most people just want to use that blade and use it for everything. While it is an exceptional blade for cutting sheet materials, which is what that's designed for, it is not necessarily the best blade to use when cutting 8-foot long, 1-inch thick white oak, making a rip cut. It's not the right blade, it's not the right tool for the application. Now, Festool's thought of this and they have different blades to choose from. Now, when it comes to the woodworking side, you're going to have a few different options. You're going to have your standard fine cut blade that comes with the majority of these saws. They also have a universal wood blade, and they have a wood rip cut blade, also known as the Panther blade. So each blade has different applications. If I'm making long rip cuts on hardwood material, this is a better option. Now, if I'm making cross cuts, then I'm probably going to use the blade that comes standard, or if I'm just using sheet goods in general. So it's important to make sure that you're using the correct blade for the application. Now, it's not just the woodworking blades that I want to address, but they also do have other very special blades, so you can utilize your track saw for more than just cutting wood. So what I have here is the 3 specialty blades that they offer, and you'll see that they're color-coded: red, blue, green. Green is going to be for your building materials, abrasives, so your fiber cement board, right? This is the blade that you would use for that. Moving on to the aluminum and plastics, pretty self-explanatory. If you're making cuts in material that is aluminum or some sort of plastic material, that's going to be the better option for that. Then you have your laminate, right? If you're cutting flooring materials, then this is going to be the blade that you want to use. So it's not just limited to the wood blades. These are very specific uses. They're designed specifically for those materials, just like the wood blades are designed specifically for cutting wood. So just make sure that before you start any project or you're selecting the right blade, you need to understand exactly what you need for that application and what's going to be best if you really want to get the best performance out of your track saw. So speaking of optimizing the tools, one of the other very common questions is people wanting to know which dust extractor they should get to pair with their track saw. And I think that that's the wrong question, because quite honestly, any one of the dust extractors will be suitable for not only the track saw, but any of your tools, because they're all designed that way. The bigger question is what hose you're using. So if you want to get the most out of your tool, for certain tools, it may be better to opt for the 36mm hose versus the 27mm hose. Bigger hose means you're going to get more air volume that's coming through that, therefore making sure that you get better dust extraction at the actual cut. So hopefully you found the information in this video helpful. If you want to find out more information on anything I covered in this video or anything else that Festool has to offer, make sure you go to festoolusa.com. And until next time, see you in the next video.